Tonight is the second GOP debate, and it is make or break for the DeSantis campaign, in my opinion. DeSantis has to go on offense. He's got to knock somebody, at least one person, out of the race tonight. He's got to convince voters that he's going to be good on borders, the border and immigration, on jobs and the economy, foreign policy, the cost of living with food and gas prices that are soaring, energy in general, on taxes, the budget, national debt, crime, and drugs. If he fails to do this, I think this is Trump's race. I think Trump takes it home tonight. Obviously, Trump is not going to be there tonight. He's going to be giving a speech to the United Auto Workers. Also, I'm going to be talking to you about the only three candidates in this race that I believe are actually trying to run for president besides Donald Trump, and what the other four are up to. So we're going to get into that in this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. Stay tuned. All right, guys, today's podcast is brought to you by MyPillow.com. Mike Lindell at MyPillow.com has built a fabulous company, an American company, American jobs, American manufacturing. Right now, if you go to MyPillow.com, you click on the radio podcast square at the top of the page. If you enter my name, Carl, C-A-R-L, you will get all the deals that are available to you. 50% off of the Giza Dream Sheets. There are some deals that are up to 66% off. Again, go to mypillow.com, radio podcast square, hit enter my name, Carl, or give them a call, 800-858-0263. American jobs, American manufacturing, mypillow.com. 10-year warranty, 60-day money-back guarantee. You cannot beat that with a bat. Plus, it helps us stay on air, too. So please help us out, mypillow.com. All things social media at The Carl Jackson Show. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook, True Social, Getter. Check us out on YouTube and Rumble, and review, subscribe, share, all of this stuff. That's going to help us move up the charts. We would absolutely appreciate that. All right, guys, let me get into today's show. And I got several things that I want to cover that I think are very important. And I want to get in, obviously, the biggest thing that I'll be covering is the second GOP debate. I'm going to give you my takes on it, just a preview of what I think needs to happen. But also, I want to talk to you about some other big stories that are out there. I think this was a huge story. Obviously, the left is still coming after Donald Trump. I'm going to tell you why this Letitia James case, this latest thing in New York City, should not be taken lightly. And I think it's more of a hoax, more of the persecution of Donald Trump. But I'm going to tell you why I don't think that he should take it lightly, and why you shouldn't take it lightly. And what I fear is what the left is trying to do, as eventually they're going to bombard Donald Trump with so much stuff, it's going to become kind of like, whatever. Here's the latest thing. All the while, they are undermining the Constitution of the United States. Obviously, they're trying to destroy Donald Trump, but they're also destroying you in the same way. And I want to talk about that. The Messenger came out with this report that Hunter Biden's bank wires listed President Biden's Delaware address. So this, according to James Comer, the GOP chairman for the House Ways and Means Committee. So there have been some China money. Joe Biden says that he was never involved in Hunter Biden's business dealings, that he had never received money from China. Well, there were bank wires from China with Joe Biden's Delaware address on them. So now we know he's lying. Obviously, we knew he was lying. There's more evidence that he is lying. Trump and company, again, liable for fraud in New York. Lawsuit, a judge rules. That's what I want to get into. That is I think this is more important than people may let on. Both Biden has already gone to see the United Auto Workers yesterday. Trump will be visiting them today to give a speech, kind of his counter measure to the GOP debate tonight. We'll talk about that. Also, the shutdown is still in existence here. This battle for the shutdown. Apparently, the Senate has come out or unveiled their plan to avoid a government pause, a temporary vacation, whatever you want to call it. Government doesn't shut down. The essential parts of government, the essential parts of government continue to work, but those workers do get furloughed, so they'll continue to do their jobs. All the payments, all of the entitled payments are military. All of the most important facets of government will continue to work. you will virtually miss nothing. You will virtually miss nothing. That's the dirty little secret of these government shutdowns. This is all political gamesmanship. This is all political tactics. And you use these things as a cudgel in order to advance your agenda. The question is, what agenda is at hand? What agenda for the left? What agenda for the right? We'll talk about that a little bit in today's podcast. But obviously, let me start here. Obviously, this is the second GOP debate. And let's, tonight, all right, Carl, is it even worth watching? Trump is so far ahead in national polling. Trump is so far ahead in state polling. Here's what I contend. Trump is going to win. Trump will be the nominee for the GOP unless someone is able to break from the pack and get on one-on-one. And let's face it, the best chance of anyone doing that, or the person with the best chance of doing that, will be Governor Ron DeSantis. The problem with Governor Ron DeSantis, and I've said this time and time again, and I speak as someone that absolutely loves Governor Ron DeSantis. I love his governing. I think he would be an amazing president. Quite frankly, I think he would be better than most people could ever imagine. That's what he did in the state of Florida. We really didn't know who this guy was. He came from the Freedom Caucus, co-founder of the Freedom Caucus, but he didn't do much campaigning in the state. He was on Fox News a lot. And then all of a sudden he gets in, and this guy is like a whirlwind. He straightens out election issues that we had in the state. I mean, right away, he started tackling stuff that other governors had not tackled or had been scared to tackle. I don't buy into this nonsense that he can be bought. One of the things that he did was he fought against the sugar lobby out here in Florida, which is huge. All right. And he fought against Disney. So this idea that he can be bought by corporations is totally asinine. The problem with DeSantis is he doesn't have that Trump factor when it comes to charisma, and that is hurting him badly. Obviously, his rollout is hurting him. It seems to me that he's starting to get the underpinnings of his foundation going, or his legs. I don't know what the exact phrase is. But anyway, it seems like he's getting his feet underneath him. Maybe that's the phrase. It seems like he's getting his legs underneath him, his feet underneath him, whatever. But is it too little, too late? Here's what's really going on. All right, let me just break this down again. Governor Ron DeSantis has to get a one-on-one on Trump. Otherwise, this puppy is all Trump's. All right, it's as simple as that. So that's what these candidates are vying for. Can they break from the pack? Can Ron DeSantis break from the pack? I think that Ron DeSantis is the only one that, if he does break from the pack, has an opportunity to beat Trump. I don't even think I don't think anyone else can. And at this point, even Governor DeSantis can't, because obviously he has not broken from the pack. But if he does, I think it's a good chance that he could probably beat Trump in a primary. Now, having said that, Trump has seemingly wrapped up all of the California delegates. It will be an uphill battle. I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke up your behinds, but I don't believe all of the polling, both the national and state polling, just because I don't believe as many people are paying attention to politics as we would like to believe. We live in a bubble, and there are a lot of people that I know, and this is just anecdotal, that are very much so into politics, that are just like, I'm not going to worry about it until we get literally close to voting. I mean, people are that checked out. And it's something that I don't think I've seen in quite some time. So just keep that in mind. All right, so here's the deal. There's three candidates. I said this at the beginning of the podcast. I think there are only three candidates besides Trump that are actually trying to run to become president. And that is obviously Governor Ron DeSantis being one, Mike Pence being another. And guys, this isn't about how, I really don't care. Hey, listen, I'm not an emotional guy like that when it comes to this stuff. I know I'm going to mention some of your candidates, and you might be, Carl, screw you, blah, blah, blah. Listen, I'm just going to give you the information. You do with it what you will. But this is the way that I see this race. There are really only three candidates besides Trump running for president. Again, Governor Ron DeSantis, Mike Pence, and Governor Burgum. Governor Burgum of, I believe he's of, where is Chrissy Nome? Is she North Dakota? So he would be South Dakota. Now, I don't think Burgum stands a chance, but he has a buttload of money. This guy, if I'm not mistaken, he's a billionaire. So as long as he polls adequately in some of these polls and in several polls, whatever the RNC, the latest rendition of their standards are in order to get onto the stage, as long as he keeps doing that, this guy can self-fund. I don't think he should, but he can self-fund and he can continue to go. And he actually seems like a guy that tries to follow the Constitution, has done a good job for his state, but he's very soft spoken. He has no charisma at all, and people don't know him, regardless of how much money he's spending. I think he's going to continue to pull low, simply because I don't think he's going to excite anyone. You have Governor Mike Pence, Governor Mike Pence. Listen, I'm not a fan of Governor Mike Pence, and it's not that I hate the man. I don't hate the man. I just, even before so many people turned on Governor Mike Pence after the January 6th deal there, where he refused to return the, man, what do you call it? Man, it escapes me right now. But basically, send the certifications back to the states for them to review. The electoral college, whatever it is. I'm sorry, it's escaping me right now. But you know what I'm talking about. All right. So before that happened, I was not the biggest fan of Mike Pence, and I'll tell you why. When he was governor of Indiana, it seems like to me he was doing a great job. But there was this Religious Freedom, I believe, Restoration Act, and he caved on it. When the left came after him, when the media caved after him, he caved on it. So he backed away from a strong position that he had taken. And forgive me, guys, I'm still sick today. My cough isn't as bad, but my head is stuffed up like nobody's business. So if I sound a little funny, or if you see me on camera, just, swipe my nose just like that. You understand exactly why. But I've not been a fan of Mike Pence. But Trump loved him. Trump picked him for VP. A lot of people loved him. And I got to admit, as vice president, I thought he did a good job until the whole COVID thing, when he was going out with fascist Fauci and doing these little press conferences that annoyed the snot out of me. But nonetheless, all right. So you have Mike Pence again. I'm not convinced that Mike Pence could ever get a one-on-one with Trump, and I don't think that he would go anywhere if he did. So those are the three, though, that I think are running for the presidency, and that is DeSantis, that is Pence, and that is Burgum. Again, I've given you the case for every single one of them. When it comes to DeSantis, this is make or break for him. He has to go on defense. Like I said at the top of the podcast, he has to knock somebody out of the race, where he's got to get voters' attention. And this is no longer, we can be a stage with 7 people on it. We've passed that point in time. So if someone doesn't break free tonight, if Governor DeSantis doesn't break free tonight, I know this is a lot of pressure, but I think he's done. Listen, I'm just, and I say this as a person that likes him. This is politics, and it is a bloody sport. There is no doubt about it. So he's going to have to go on offense. He's going to have to share his positions. He's got to show people that he's more than just the woke governor. And I think woke is good, because it is cultural Marxism. I wish he would explain it and break it down in that way. Listen, your kids, when I'm in charge, are going to be getting educated, not indoctrinated. And we're going to strip federal funding from colleges or anybody that teaches this crap, that enforces this DEI, despite the Supreme Court ruling. If they continue with this DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, this CRT, critical race theory, or SEL, social emotional learning, we are going to be stripping all of their federal funds. We're not going to be giving out any federal scholarships or federal grants to these schools, and they're going to have to strictly live off of their endowments. And frankly, I think that's what should happen in the first place. But if he were to say something like that, then you can use the woke argument. But I just don't think he's done an effective job at doing that. Now, having said that, I'm going to get to the issues that I think need to be talked about in the debate tonight. These are the most important issues that, when polled, people are talking about. I'm specifically going into a poll that was given in the Granite State, which is New Hampshire. Now, keep in mind, New Hampshire is an open primary, so you get, which I think absolutely sucks for Republicans. I think it's one of the reasons why Republicans are so freaking watered down. These open primaries are a disaster, but that is a case for another day. However, they do give you a good snapshot of what the country is feeling, what voters are feeling. New Hampshire is one of those states, even though it is primarily a white state. But let's go through the other candidates. Vivek the Fake. All right, now Vivek Ramaswamy. Okay, I shouldn't have said that. I know there's a lot of people out there that like Vivek. Vivek is a great communicator. I've shared this before. He is a great communicator. He is so great at communicating conservative ideas that right away I donated to him. I wasn't under the illusion at all that he would win or that he would defeat Trump, but I thought there needed to be someone in the race that could communicate conservative ideas, frankly, better than Trump can, because I think there's a whole swath of Americans that are reachable if they hear our ideas communicated better. And as good as Trump has been in the past with some policy, I don't think he does a great job of communicating conservative ideas. And the primary has gotten so nasty that I fear if Trump leaves the scene, or when he leaves the scene, you're going to have Republicans, factions of the Republican Party, still worrying where progressives can come back in and win the White House in 2028, even if Trump were to become president. So I don't like the way that the Trump campaign is playing the primary. I think it's really dangerous for constitutionalism as a whole. I'll just be frank. But so Vivek, great communicator, great ideas. The problem is there's just too many contradictions. And I think the more people read into it, the more they see that, the more people do research about him. And I think he rubbed people the wrong way. The young crowd, the social media crowd, the Instagram crowd, he did extremely well with, but I don't think he's been able to expand. I don't think he's been able to expand his base beyond that. Now, I do hear that in Iowa, he and Governor Ron DeSantis are doing yeoman's work, groundwork on the ground, really putting the effort in. So we'll see how it pans out. But simply put, I just don't trust Vivek. I think he says one thing and he's done another in so many cases. He's had different views. Just a few months ago, several months ago, and up to a year ago, even wrote about some things about Donald Trump a year ago, where all of a sudden he feels and says something different. And so that's Vivek, but he is a great communicator. Senator Tim Scott, let me be okay. So when it comes to Senator Tim Scott, I think he's great for his state. I don't think Senator Tim Scott is ready to be president. And I don't think he's ready for prime time. I don't even think he's ready for the primary. And I'm not trying to be nasty. I'm not trying to be mean. But it's one of the reasons. But Larry Elder hasn't been able to make it to the stage. And at this point, I doubt that he will. But I'd rather have seen Larry Elder on stage as opposed to a Tim Scott, because I think Larry Elder is much better at explaining conservative ideas. And not only that, he's been talking about them for 30, 40 years. And so not only can he explain them well, but he actually believes this stuff to his core. And he has some great ideas. So I wanted to see him prevail on stage and at least get that opportunity. It doesn't look like it's going to happen. But speaking about Senator Tim Scott, I just don't think he's ready for prime time. I really don't. I think, again, a great senator. I don't even think from what I've seen thus far, 2028 would be viable for him. All right, so that's me. Moving on, Chris Christie, I guess he's in this race to sabotage Trump, but I don't know. I seriously, I go back and forth with this guy. I'm like, okay, so I know that initially it sounds as though he was getting in the race to sabotage Trump, but I don't know that he does anything but help Trump. I mean, he's polling, I think, second in New Hampshire. So who does that hurt? That hurts Governor DeSantis. That hurts Nikki Haley. So it's hard for me to believe that he's in it solely to take down Donald Trump. If this guy saw an opportunity to prevail, then he would. There's no doubt about it. But he won't be the nominee because too many people are onto him and too many people believe that the only reason he is in is to destroy Donald Trump. And by the way, I thought this, and I hate that I thought this first and didn't mention it, but Molly Hemingway at the Federalist wrote a fabulous column on this. What Chris Christie should be going for is the Senate seat in New Jersey. With Bob Menendez and all of his issues, Chris Christie should be going for the Senate seat in New Jersey. That's where his focus should lie if he's serious about getting into office. Nikki Haley. Now, Nikki Haley had a breakout moment in the last debate. Now, like her or not, and I think I did a podcast, Never Nikki Haley, why I'm a never Nikki Haley person or something like that, or why I'm never Nikki Haley. And listen, I'm not going to vote for Nikki Haley in a primary. I think Nikki Haley is a moderate. I think that she would acquiesce to a lot of left-wing issues were she to be put in the White House. I think she is your typical George W. Bush type candidate, all right? But she comes off as very likable, authentic. You kind of know what you're going to get. And when Vivek was sitting there on the stage and just demeaning everybody and speaking, just being so condescending, she stood up to him and she made her voice heard and her point heard when it came to the issue of Israel, when it came to foreign policy. However, wherever you land on foreign policy, you can tell that she is a woman of conviction on those issues. And it came across as very authentic. And as a result of that, people, I believe, saw her as one, authentic, and two, a fighter. But I believe why Nikki Haley is in the race is because there's no way she's going to be able to defeat a Trump. And I don't think she has the ground game to even compete against an alternate like Governor Ron DeSantis. I think she is in it to be VP or to just build her name recognition and wait it out for 2028. And so far, I think she's overperformed, quite frankly. So kudos to her. I said I was never Nikki Haley. I would not vote for her in the primary, but if she managed to become the nominee, which I highly doubt it, I would vote for her over a Joe Biden or a Gavin Newsom, because I do believe Gavin Newsom is running any day of the week. All right, so that takes care of that. Now, the issues that are real quick, and I think I mentioned these, but I just want to go through them again real quick. I mentioned them in regards to DeSantis. They're going to have to hit these issues. The border issue, I've talked about that twice this week in podcast already. Republicans aren't doing anything about it. I don't think they care to do anything about the border, quite frankly. The next Republican president has to talk about this issue, has to give people confidence that they are going to take care of and curtail this issue. It's a much bigger problem than it was under Donald Trump. And so now, how are they going to turn this around? Trump was able to turn it around. He was able to get the border under control. But if you recall, it took him years to get the border under control. And then in the last year, I think it was the last couple of years of his presidency, in the last few months of his presidency, the border started slowly. All right, so there's that story. I just wanted to tackle that. So we've tackled the corruption of the Biden administration, more corruption from the Biden crime family. We've tackled the previewing the debates, a few more topics that I want to hit real quickly here. Let's go to this. All right, so both Biden and Trump visit the UAW. Here's what they're fighting for. It's for working class voters. All right. Obviously, Trump, being a billionaire, does a great job of relating to middle class workers. I think DeSantis is actually pretty good at that too, but Trump obviously already has a track record. You have to remember about the Biden administration. Remember what Obama did. The Obama-Biden administration at that time threw white working class workers under the bus. They decided that they were going to go for the immigrants, for minorities, and they were going to leave white working class, middle class workers behind, and they did just that. They managed to squeak out the 2012 presidential campaign because we had a crappy candidate in Mitt Romney that refused to fight. It was the weirdest freaking thing. But anyway, but now they need those voters. Biden's polling is in the tank. It is absolutely horrific. I don't believe a lot of the polling, but you can guess that the polling is just not good for Biden anywhere. So at least there's symmetry. At least there's an understanding as Democrats look at this, like, this guy isn't doing well. Nobody likes him. He's not performing well in every facet of every poll. He's not doing well amongst the voters, and this is very scary for them. They have to pick up votes. All right, and maybe the illegals that they're bringing into the country aren't going to be able to vote in time. Joke, kind of. We'll see. But anyway, they have to get these middle class workers. So what does Biden do? Do? He takes sides with the United Auto Workers. This is unprecedented in American history. So he takes sides. Now, he's trying to stand with the auto workers, but at the same time, not get involved in the negotiations. That is the ploy. He just wants them to believe that he's with them. He believes, or he's come out and said, listen, that they should get what they want and they deserve more. And these people want over a 40% pay raise. You're talking about Ford. You're talking about, Ford, GMC, Chrysler, or Stenali, or whatever it's called now. All right, so you're talking about You're talking about auto workers, United Auto Workers, United States Auto Workers. You're talking about the big three. That's going to make, they want a 40%, over a 40% pay raise. I think if I recall correctly, it's like 46%. Plus they want to go down to a 4-day work week. Plus they want severance packages that are just outstanding. I think they want pay of somewhere of close to, um, was it 180 something dollars per hour? If I are you on crack? I mean, that's what is that? Is if we calculate that, so 50 bucks an hour, what is 50 bucks an hour is basically 100 grand. So you're looking at 300 grand, 300 what, 60, 80 grand, some insane amount of money. I'm sorry, when you're making that money, you're not middle class. You're upper middle class at the very least, and you're definitely within the top 5% of all income earners in the United States, if not more, probably closer to the top 2 or 3%. I mean, so let's be real. I'm not a fan. I don't want to sit here and pretend like I'm a fan of these unions. I'm just not. And honestly, I think the only people that get rich off of these unions, typically at least, have been the bosses of these unions. But they're going to drive the cost of vehicles up. And I'll be frank with you. I love the look of many of these American made vehicles, but I'm a reliability guy. So I will go into Consumer Reports all the time. This is one of my obsessions. I'm not going to lie. It's not like I go out and buy a bunch of cars because I simply can't afford them. I wish I could, but I simply can't. But I'll look at the cars that get some of the lowest ratings, and they're usually, I hate to say this, but it's true as far as reliability is concerned. Most of the times, it's American made cars from these big three. They're not Toyota or Honda. You're not buying the bank wires from July and August of 2019 when Joe Biden was running for president are payments from Beijing. One of them for $10,000 comes from Wang Xing in July. Obviously, I'm going to butcher these names. The other comes from Jonathan Lee and Tan Ling for $250,000. Joe Biden's house in Wilmington is listed, is the listed beneficiary address for both. This, according to the committee. In the announcement of his new findings, Comer accused the president of lying when he said his family never received money from China. Not only did Joe Biden lie that his family didn't receive money from China, the bank wires had his personal address on them. What a liar. What a fraud. Okay, so moving on. Joe Biden is a liar. Joe Biden is a crook. Again, Hunter Biden is working for him. Why do you think Hunter Biden is suing Rudy Giuliani? Isn't that pretty amazing? He's suing Rudy Giuliani. It's almost like he's admitting the laptop is his. He wants to be a countermeasure to the debate tonight. So we'll see what happens there, how that works out for him. Obviously, he's not. That means he's not going to be at the debate tonight. He doesn't feel like he has to be. I'm one of these people, but I understand that I'm one of a very few that thinks he should be at and participate in all debates because I think the American people deserve to hear what he'll do now. I know he can use the arguments, and I totally get it. I've even said he should use these arguments in the past. Been there, done that. Hey, I've done this, but I'm sorry. The problems are so much worse now than when he took office the first time. I'd like to see or I'd like to hear what he would do now, and I think the voters deserve to understand and hear what he would do now. So anyway, but that's the issue with the United Auto Workers. They both are vying for the working class vote, Trump and Biden. And so I'm not even convinced that Biden will be the nominee, but obviously with Biden going to Michigan to speak to the United Auto Workers, he's telling you that he wants to be their nominee. He wants to get out in front of this thing. Now, here's another story that I think is just huge, that I think is really huge. Obviously, they're coming after Donald Trump again, but I would argue they're coming after you. And I don't mean in the traditional way. So here's this from CNBC. Trump and company liable for fraud in New York lawsuit, judge rules. So here are the key points. A judge ruled that Trump and his company are liable for fraud in a lawsuit by New York AG Letitia James. This isn't new, by the way. Letitia James looked to prosecute Trump for these same exact charges, if I recall correctly, over a year ago. She didn't beat anyone to the punch, and the charges were so frivolous they just weren't going to happen. So then you had Alvin Bragg that drew first blood. Judge Arthur Engoron, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, not trying to be disrespectful. As part of that decision, canceled the New York business certificates of Trump and the other defendants in the suit in the Manhattan Supreme Court. That includes both Eric and Donald Trump Jr. Engoron, in his ruling, found that Trump had made false and misleading valuations for multiple real estate assets and statements to insurers and banks over the course of years. Because of those misstatements, Trump had inflated his true net worth by billions of dollars, according to the judge, or the judge found. So this happened on Tuesday. And again, the judge found him liable for fraud by misstating the true values of multiple real estate properties for years, and thus grossly overstating the former president's net worth by billions of dollars. All right, so Judge Arthur Engoron, in his bombshell decision, also canceled the New York business certificates of Trump, the Trump Organization, and other defendants, again, including his sons, in a lawsuit by the state AG's office. The judge said he would appoint an independent receiver to manage the dissolution of the corporation entities whose business certificates he canceled. Okay, here's the bombshell in my opinion. So it isn't clear, all right, according to CNBC, whether Engoron's decision means the Trump Organization and related entities will have to completely cease doing business in New York, or whether the companies can be legally reconstituted later. I want you to think of the former. It is not clear whether Engoron's decision means the Trump Organization and related entities will have to completely cease doing business in New York. Does this mean that they will seize his private property? Does this mean that they will seize his assets? This is scary. However you feel about Trump, I don't care. This is scary. What does this mean? It's not just that these charges are minimal and asinine, and I'll tell you why they're asinine. And I get it. I am not for, if Trump lied on whatever, any documents, shame on him. And if he did and the court proves it, so be it. But here's the question that I would have. Were any of these properties, the values of these properties, gauged by a property appraiser? Like, it seems to me that even if he tried to inflate the value of his properties when he sells or when he buys, an appraiser comes in and says, nope, sorry, you're not getting that. It's not worth that. So all of this stuff gets worked out ultimately, right? I mean, this is scary. They also say that he claimed that I think Trump Tower was like 3 times bigger than it actually is for tax purposes, or for the benefit of tax purposes, or something to that degree. So that's yet to be seen. But I'm very concerned that the goal here is to take away private assets of a political opponent. That's very scary to me. So just something to watch for. We'll continue to follow that. The shutdown continues to loom. You had the Senate GOP, and again, it's not a shutdown. I got to stop calling that the temporary pause, the vacation. Again, the Senate has come up with their plan. They have unveiled a plan. The House isn't buying it. The Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, is in a very tight spot. And again, because you have people that are fighting, like Congressman Matt Gaetz, that are saying, listen, we have 4 days here. We're not backing down. We don't want the Ukraine spending in the bill. I think there's $300 million that's supposed to go to Ukraine. Again, the Senate has come out with their plan and said we'll ship $6 billion, I believe it is, to Ukraine. And this would just be a short-term spending deal. So the Senate moved ahead Tuesday, this according to the Wall Street Journal, with its own approach to averting the partial government shutdown, advancing legislation that would extend funding through November 17th. And then we go through this crap all again, which also provided about $6 billion apiece for Ukraine and for disaster relief. The Senate proposal, the only bipartisan approach currently being used, pursued by congressional leaders, sets up a showdown with House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. The California Republican wants to extend government funding, but on the condition that Congress also enact strict border security measures and exclude any support for Kyiv to keep his conference united. So I know that this isn't a bad look, or this is a bad look for Republicans. I get it. But honestly, when is this spending going to stop? This unnecessary spending, this out of control government spending. When are we going to get to the point where we have an annual budget instead of these continuing resolutions that allow us to just keep going further and further and further and further into debt? I'm sorry. I think this fight is worth having. These people in Washington, D.C. can come up with all the tactics they want, but it is us that they are driving into bankruptcy, and I want it to stop. And I know there's plenty of Republicans that would disagree with me. It's not a bad look. It's not a bad, I mean, it's a bad look. It's a bad look. Well, this is bad for the country when you go into this type of debt. This is bad for the country. This is bad for the middle class worker. So sick of this crap. I'm so sick of Republicans just playing the freaking game, the theatrics, and not really getting anything done. I'm going to leave it there. Guys, listen, I appreciate you tuning in to this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. I can't wait to come back on tomorrow, talk to you about the debate and whatever breaking news is out there as well. But until next time, don't grow weary doing good. Remember to follow me on all things social media at The Carl Jackson Show. Subscribe to the podcast, please. The Carl Jackson Show, YouTube and Rumble. Please, we'd like to build our numbers there. If you go to YouTube and Rumble and subscribe, rate, review, all that good stuff, help us to move up the charts. Give us the best score possible. We would certainly appreciate that. Guys, until next time, don't grow weary doing good. God bless you.